Okay, so I'm going to show you an example of using a wood chisel for a practical purpose. First of all, we'll look at the wood chisel for a minute. We'll see how the way this blade is ground, this side is just flat, and this angle coming off like that, pretty small angle, so you get a really fine edge here, way different from the cold chisel, right? And of course, this edge, if you tried to beat on a piece of metal with this, or if you're cutting in a piece of wood and you manage to clip the end of a nail, you're going to damage that edge pretty thoroughly. So you want to be careful of that kind of stuff. But if you have a dull chisel like this, it's going to work so poorly, you'll be very unhappy with it. So here's a smaller version of the same thing. Same angle on there, and it just would be, if you're trying to get in a smaller space, this is better. If you're trying to take away more material, this is better. This is about, I would say, 1 inch wide. This chisel here is about 1 inch wide. This is probably about 1/4 of an inch wide. And then we have, several in between. So what I'm looking at here is, if I've got a hinge, this is like a cabinet hinge, and I want it to fit in this piece of wood, but I don't want the piece of metal to stick up above the surface of the wood. Whatever thickness that piece of metal is right there, that's a 1/16 of an inch thick piece of metal right there, if it sits on here, if I just screw it down tight on this piece of wood right there, it's going to have a 16-inch thickness of metal. Now in some circumstances, if it's like a garden gate or something like that, this might be fine. Just put it right on there and go. But other instances, like I said, in cabinet work and other things, you really need this hinge to sit down. And this is part of a door hinge, a genuine interior door hinge. And so you can see there's a significant amount of thickness there that you really have to cut that mortise into the piece of wood and into the door jamb and into the door itself in order for that to work properly. Otherwise, it jams up the door quite a bit. So I got this guy here, and to do this, I got our chisel. I'm going to use a wooden mallet today, but I could use the rawhide mallet too. This guy here, right? You don't want to beat on your nice chisel, particularly this wooden and leather head here, with a metal hammer, especially one with a rough face. Okay, and sometimes people get in a hurry and they just grab whatever's handy, start beating on it, and then they regret it because this gets all torn up. And of course, you're not going to beat on this thing like you're driving a nail. You're just tapping real gently on it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do then on this particular setup, I'm going to try to zoom in just a little bit, is I'm going to outline the cut. Right? We want to remove some wood here, but we don't want to go past these little limits shown by where I drew a pencil line. Right? So tap that. Why? Okay. I'll try to stand away so I'm not putting such a shadow on the shot. Right? It's a little harder to drive this down in there when I'm going across the grain, because I'm having to cut the grains. Okay. Pretty good whack it takes. Now going down the side here, I probably don't have to hit it as hard, because it's more like I'm just kind of spreading the pieces apart, separating the grain, the wood, but not really cutting it. Right? So this is easier. I can give this a few good taps. Like that, right? Now, another thing with wood that's soft like this and a chisel that's relatively sharp, and I've got this, I'm going to double check this up, really make sure I've got these ends cut well so they don't splinter out like I don't want. To some extent, you can simply push on the chisel and it removes wood. You can see that right there, I'm putting a bit of force on it, but it's actually digging up pieces of wood right there. And this is a great instance where you don't want to be doing it towards any part of you, right? It's tempting. I could grab this and start pulling like this, and it's from a standpoint of me having good leverage to pull on it and a good angle to exert my force on it. That's great, but of course, it's real easy for that thing to come out and do some damage to your body. So you want to make sure that when you're doing these things, you're staying clear. Now the other way to do this is to go along and do several cuts, each pulling up a little bit of wood. Okay, can you see that? It's flaking up a layer of wood of a certain type, and I'm kind of holding the chisel on just the right angle to get that thing. I'm not digging it in like this. I'm not going way down in as if it's a you know, like I'm trying to drive a nail. I just wanted to cut in a little bit and peel up a layer of wood, right? And once I've done that, now I can kind of go along and break those loose. And that takes away some wood. It's not enough yet, I don't think. But I can do like that. Go the other side a little bit. And that gives me a good bit of control. I really don't want to go, I want to go down into the wood, but I don't want to go too deep. And now I can check my progress and feel here at the edge. Well, you know, it's in there a little bit, but it's definitely not in there far enough. So we'll go through and do the same thing over again. Little cuts. Cut them off this way a little bit. Again, I really don't want to mess up and cut this all the way. See, now that wood is so fickle. I managed to catch a little tiny bit there and take it away where I didn't want it to be. I got my other mallet here. We'll give it a try. It'll be fun. Okay. And of course, it's a good time to go ahead and take another check here. It's getting close. That's getting close. I think that's pretty darn good, actually. Let me see if I do just a little more shaving here to make sure. Looks pretty good. So now I've created enough of a groove there, enough of an indent, a mortise. I've taken away this wood that if I screwed this down tight now, this piece of hinge will be flush with the main surface, so it would be set down in there enough that would be cool. Yeah, so that's one way to use the chisel. And of course, other times if you just need to create, you know, some kind of a small place here, like you want it to fit neatly against another piece of wood and there's a protrusion or whatever, we can just, you know, cut it out the same way. Let me do that real quick. If I want to cut out, say, a small square recess right here, you know, then I'm going to, again, be real careful to define my cut like that, and then carefully try to knock these pieces out without going outside the space that I've defined, right? It's part of the challenge. It's really important to not get real aggressive and say, oh no, I got to cut a whole bunch all at once. I've got to dig in there super deep and get it all out at once. You know, you can work at it and slowly work away, get out a little bit at a time, right? Now at some point, of course, it becomes impractical to go any deeper with the chisel, but at the moment, you know, I'm able to get a pretty neat little recess in the piece of wood there. Where did it go there? There it is. So there is my other little hole, if I can get him in the picture. Whoops, let me try this. Okay. Yeah, there's the other little hole I was talking about. And then of course, the one that's the mortise for the hinge. Alrighty.